31st of January 2022, you crossed 100K, and roll forward 1,352 days, we passed 13 million subs. Why do you think Diary of a CEO has been so successful?
If you want to be the best in your industry, you've got to do things that other people aren't doing. It's not about that we know something others didn't know, it's that we're willing to try things.
Today's guest takes us behind the scenes of the growth and success of Stephen Bartlett's Diary of a CEO and shares everything we need to know about the future of podcasting. Joining me is Head of Experimentation and Failure of Diary of a CEO, Grace Miller.
Every single thing matters to Steve and the Diary of a CEO team. There's so much you can play around with.
YouTube, Instagram, and Spotify.
Yeah.
What would be like maybe 2 things people can test in each of those platforms?
Let's start with YouTube.
If you were like looking at, let's just say, the back end of my channel from scratch, what kind of key things would you be looking at?
You don't have to come up with anything super innovative. It can be as simple as just using those things to your advantage. I'd be looking at the main core people that work on a podcast can be quite small to still achieve massive results. And we've seen that with our new shows at Fly. It could be 2 or 3 people working on it and they are growing faster than the Diary of a CEO.
What are your thoughts? Do you think podcasts are oversaturated?
If someone listens to this episode, they're going to understand more about podcasting, how to experiment, but also get comfortable with failure.
All right, balancers, welcome to another episode of The Balance Theory. I am very excited to bring you today's guest. We are going to learn a lot from her. I'm very interested in her journey and growth and really just to get to know her. So Grace Miller, welcome to the show. Thank
you for having me. You know, I've listened to the show so many times, so I'm so excited to be here.
Oh, that's really nice to hear. And welcome to Dubai as well. It's your first time here, so I'm glad we could pencil this into your schedule. I know it's going to be hectic the next few days for you.
No, I'm really excited to chat to you.
Well, I think we're a really good place to start to sort of set the stage for where you are now. And everything you're going to share with us today is getting to know you and your journey a little bit more. So you talk about how you failed university and now you are the head of failure and experimentation for both Stephen Bartlett and the Diary of a CEO. Talk to me about that gap, getting from that point A to now point B. What was that like for Grace?
Yeah, it was interesting. And it was also on the other side of the world. So it was in Australia when I was studying at uni and I studied marketing and international business. And I actually really loved it. The class I failed, I didn't love so much, but then obviously
no surprises.
Retook it and then had to pass it. But studied and then I went into marketing and social media within the aviation industry. So I worked with airports and airlines, which was really fun, but also a massive challenge because it was during COVID. So there was 2 rounds of redundancies. I was really lucky to not be made redundant and learnt so much there. So I always say to my managers from there how grateful I am for the knowledge they gave me, because when I then moved to the UK, I was able to bring that knowledge with me into this role, which was super important because I had, well, I'll tell you in a sec, but basically I had skills that other people didn't have that allowed me to get the job. So I actually saw the role, it actually wasn't even to do with failure and experimentation. It was to do with a project that doesn't even exist anymore. So when I started, I saw the job on Instagram of one of my friends, Grace, who used to work in the company. She posted it and I saw it, applied on a Monday and then started the job the next Monday.
Wow.
So within a week, which was a whirlwind, but also the coolest startup vibe ever. And we went from that to 4 years later, I'm still there. It's literally my 4 years this week. I think tomorrow, the next day, which is amazing. And I've loved every second of it. But I think the reason I was able to get the job is I had the skills of, I'd learned a lot about paid media in my previous role that allowed me to have something that the team currently didn't have. And I still see that now. It's like, what skills can this person bring to the team that no one in the team has and they can contribute? And it's kind of what we currently look for as well, of how they can upskill and uplift the current team. And so, that's how I got into the role and got here today. And it's been a whirlwind, but the best type of whirlwind ever.
That's, I'm just thinking about you working for an airline during COVID and how like difficult that would have been in terms of marketing. Like, how were you involved in like the pivot of strategy? Like, can you just very high level like share that? I'm actually very interested to hear what that involves.
It was, so we owned multiple airports in Australia, the company I work for, and then we worked with the airlines. And so our airports, we had to do so many opens and closes. So it was like, we're reopening, nope, we're shut again because of COVID, and then we reopen and then we shut again. Probably, I think about 5 times.
Yeah, I was in Australia, so yeah I know.
And honestly, it was the best challenge in the sense of understanding how, well, I got a lot of experience in how do you plan something and then re-strategize if it doesn't work. But we also took it as an opportunity to do really cool things. So we did a concert on the runway with the band Shepherd, which is like the Australian Sage Geronimo is their famous song, and it had like a private jet and a fire truck behind it, and they did a whole performance on the runway, which would never happen in a normal day because there's planes. So it was kind of taking the things that couldn't work and finding a new way to do things throughout all of that. And obviously it was a tough time for everyone, but especially the travel industry had nothing going on. Yeah. So we were trying to use all of the like skills we had to put to advantage in different places.
Well, I can definitely hear how those early threads of like experimenting and having to pivot quickly like was sort of within you already. Did you create the role you're in now yourself in the team, or was it put forward as something and then you kind of filled the shoes?
Yeah, so I was 2 years into the social media role with Steve, and was doing all of his paid marketing, community, email, product. We kind of just did everything at the start all together.
As you do in startup.
Yeah, everyone's hands-on. And then 2 years into it, Steve said, I've seen the likes of Amazon, Google, Tesla all have experimentation departments or innovation departments. Would you want to do something like that? And I think the reason he asked, I've never actually asked him why, he came and asked me that, but within the paid, I used to experiment every week and say, these are the new people we're targeting, or the demographics, or different countries and how they're performing. And so was naturally experimenting without realizing. And so when he said, I was like, actually, it's a great challenge and something super cool and innovative to try, and also a nice shift in career where I still get to work with the social media teams, but I get to now help grow the podcast and company.
Well, I really admire like what you guys as a team and as a podcast have done, because you're really paving the way and pushing the boundaries as to what a podcast is and means. And I think it's really, really inspiring. And we're definitely going to dive a bit more into experimentation, because I think that looks like one thing within like a team and a podcast, but even for ourselves individually, like I would love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Before we go in there, if I was a fly on the wall in your office, what would a typical day in the Diary of a CEO team look like?
Everyone all over the world. So we were laughing about it yesterday because Jem, like our producer who books all of the amazing guests, she was flying off to LA. I was flying here. Then Jack, who does all the direction and editing, he's flying to LA in a few days. So it's chaos in the best way. And then Steve is already overseas. But if we're all in the office at the same time, it's usually a lot of chatting about work and about life, and a lot of laughter, because everyone is just very jokey and friendly, which is so nice. But also a lot of hard work, which I think from videos, and like obviously we have Behind the Diary, which is a vlog of Steve's life, it can seem like lots of fun, and it is the most fun company, but it also is a lot of hard work, and everyone there is so talented and truly the best at their areas. So it's not only fun, but it's also a lot of strategy, a lot of finding ways to do things better, and conversations. Like Steve was WhatsApping last night when I was at the airport to say, I think we should do these things, and putting everyone in contact with each other for a project we're working on, and moving fast. And that's the thing Steve loves. I said, oh yeah, I can do a meeting on a weekend. Not saying everyone should. I think work-life balance is good, but I think if you want to be the best in your industry, you've got to do things that other people aren't doing, and we're willing to do a meeting on a weekend to become the best.
Well, it definitely goes to show. And I came across this stat about the show. So basically on the 31st of January 2022, which is almost 4 years ago to the date, and probably around the time you started, you crossed 100K on YouTube. And roll forward, the post said 1,352 days, which is 14th of October 2025, you passed 13 million subs, which is insane growth. And I think there's so much to learn and extract from that journey. But I wanted to ask you, why do you think Diary of a CEO has been so successful and one of the biggest and best shows in the podcasting world?
I think it's because the team genuinely care. And I know that's hard to say because it's hard to say, oh, please care about this work you're doing. But they genuinely care and they really want it to be the best. So Jack, who I mentioned before, he is one of the best people I've ever met who knows YouTube or podcasting in general. And you can meet, I'm sure you've met a lot of YouTube strategists. And whether or not they're YouTube strategists, I think there's only a few in the world who are actually truly, really good at what they need to do. And Jack is one of those, and the rest of the team, whether it's the producers, the teams on the trailers. Like, I see so many podcasts now trying to replicate DOAC's trailers. And I think everyone can have their own spin on it and make it their own. But the team behind that actually cares so much about every tiny detail. And it's not just that, it's everyone in the team. And that is the success. It's not about that we know something others didn't know. It's that we're willing to try things and we care so much that we want to know the answers of how to grow as fast. And Steve had talked about it on a podcast yesterday, but he talks about paper walls, and it's like being willing to go the extra mile to say, someone might say it doesn't work. Well, I'm going to test it and see if it does work, push down the fake wall and say, hey, it actually does work, and you tried to tell me it didn't. So it's, I think, the mentality of really out-caring the competition.
Yeah, and you definitely can get that sense from, you know, the brand that's been built and all the different things you guys put out there. So I think it's really aspirational. It'd be interesting to know sort of the order in which people were hired, because I think a lot of people, there's so many podcasts, right? And having manpower behind you as a podcaster is challenging at the beginning, especially when monetization is something that doesn't come a lot later. But just to sort of paint the picture, what number higher were you, and sort of what were the most important ones to start with, and then what came a bit later, so to sort of paint the picture of growth?
Yeah, I think I was higher number 7. And to put it this way, for the last the Diary CEO has been around for 5-ish years if you count when we went fully video on YouTube. And since then, maybe up until a year ago, we only had about 30 of us working on the podcast, which sounds like a lot, but that was the extended team as well. So that was brand partnerships. It wasn't just the direct podcast recording. But before I started, the people that were there were Jack, the producer, Berta, she's now works on the long form, but used to do the trailers before Amazing Trailer Teams joined. And then there was Grace and Holly in socials, and then Emma in PR, Harry in research. So we only have one researcher at the time. Now there's an amazing, massive research team across Flight. And then a few other people like Steve's assistant, Soph, his manager, Dom. So it was very small at the start. And then when I started, there's almost been like hiring times rather than not intentionally. Yeah. So it'd be like a hiring block. And so when I started, I was the first of maybe 5 or 6 of us that were new. So it was like a good chunk of people starting. So when the trailer team started, and a few like Jem, who's been there now the same amount of time as me, we all kind of started at once and have built it since then. And then there's been people come and go in between then. But that was kind of the main chunks. There was about 10, 15 of us at the start for the last 4 years. But I also think it can look like a massive team, but in reality, the main core people that work on a podcast can be quite small to still achieve massive results. And we've seen that with our new shows at Flight. So We Need to Talk, Begin Again. They have a lot smaller teams. So like one producer, maybe one editor. Sometimes the producer is the editor as well, and a social person. So it could be 2 or 3 people working on it, and they are growing faster than the Diary of a CEO.
Wow.
When the Diary of a CEO started. So yeah, their growth is just phenomenal.
Do you think that's because we know so much more about like what works and what doesn't now, or do you think shows are just trying new things? Like, what do you think is the reason that someone can grow faster now with like less manpower?
Yeah, I think maturity of the industry. A lot more people are consuming podcasts over TV or Netflix. Well, podcasts are on Netflix now, so could be different. But I think maturity of the industry, but also for us, we've learned so much of what did and didn't work at DOAC that we've then been able to replicate that faster in these new shows. So I don't think everyone across the world is seeing as fast growth in podcasting, but for us, we've been able to see that from the knowledge we've gained over the last 5 years.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Now, with your role specifically, is there something that it's like your bread and butter in terms of a test? Like you're constantly testing this one thing?
Steve says it so many times about thumbnails, but if I was to say something else that's not thumbnails or titles, and that's on YouTube, it could be call to actions. So how do we ask people to subscribe? If you look back through every DOAC episode, you'll probably see a different call to action every 5 to 10 episodes. We want to see what works, what doesn't. And also you don't want it to become stale. It's like, subscribe, comment on YouTube is so generic. So how do we make it a bit more fun? How do we innovate? And always testing with that. So that's been one of the main continuous tests that we've been running for years now.
Yeah. And with like so many things you can be looking at and fine tuning, is there anything you guys ignore on purpose that you're like, we're not even going to worry about that and we're just going to focus on other things?
Ooh, I like that. I don't think there's anything we actually ignore. I think because, well, maybe I'm trying to think in the back end of YouTube if there's anything we ignore. There's some things we don't look too deeply into. Like we probably don't really look too deeply into gender or age because we're so focused on just growing an audience. We don't mind who comes and listens as long as they're happy and interested in the content. But I would say we call it 1% and everything matters. So whether it's the fire here or the scent in the room or the music that's on when someone walks in, every single thing matters to Steve and the Diary of a CEO team.
Yeah. It does strike me as like a very attention to detail, but I was curious, like, is there anything I suppose like at large people think matters but doesn't? You know?
That they think matters but doesn't.
Yeah.
Ooh. I actually don't. I think we just, like, anything can matter no matter what. It depends on what you're working towards. So YouTube analytics, for example, is so detailed. Yeah.
I honestly feel like I need a degree to go through it.
Like one of my favorite ones that not a promo for YouTube, but I do love YouTube, is they've brought out the 3 different types of viewers now. And it's like new, returning and like, not recent, but there's another word for it. I can't remember the name because I've been on a flight. But I thought that was really interesting. Not that you'd use it every day, but it's quite interesting to know who's coming back to your content, why, and how often are they coming back. So I actually think the more you dive into YouTube, the more it can be useful. Whether it becomes too much and you focus on the wrong things is probably another question, but we dive into things when we think of a hypothesis, or I do sit a lot in the back end and find new analytics and new things that might stand out to us.
If you were like looking at, let's just say, the back end of my channel from scratch, what kind of key things would you be looking at in terms of opportunities to be able to improve, whether it be like click-through rate or like just for people listening that also find YouTube analytics like a bit of a minefield and maybe they're just managing it themselves. What are the key things you would like focus on?
I'd be looking at all of your previous episodes and what has performed best in terms of spikes. So you might already do this, but if you're looking at an episode, you'll be able to see the retention graph on YouTube. And sometimes there'll be sections, not all the time, but sometimes there'll be sections that have a 20% increase in retention. And it's that moment, whether it's to clip and put on socials, whether it's to get more guests similar to that. That is the first one I'd be doing if I was looking at what guests to bring on again. And especially on that, it's usually if you have higher retention, hopefully you also have somewhat higher views. So it works both ways. I'd also be looking at where are your subscribers coming from. So are they countries we want to be subscribing? Are they diverse and all over the world? That then obviously helps your brand partnerships, depending on where your brand partners are from. If it really depends what our hypothesis and KPIs and goals are. But if it was growth, I would definitely be looking at what's performing in the back end, but also what's not. And then the other one is the thumbnail testing on YouTube is my favorite. So they have literally given us a tool that no one has ever been able to create before because they didn't have the back end. And even though it can be really small numbers between the performance, I think the more you test, the higher the separation should become one day because you'll test something so diverse that it will actually, hopefully, we say 1 in 10 will be a success out of experiments, but hopefully after you've done 10, maybe 1 will be a really significant difference. So we're constantly testing thumbnails and not just on new episodes, on back catalogue as well. Yeah. So how can you revive those old episodes to get views?
Yeah. And you know how it only gives you like 3 thumbnails to add in? would you guys do like 3, and then how long would you run that for before you go with a winner, and then would you, I assume, test another 3 and then so on and so forth?
So they run out for us. So actually it depends on what show and how many views you're getting that then becomes statistically significant for YouTube.
Oh, and then it picks one.
Yeah. Once it picks a winner, sometimes it'll say inconclusive results because it's not statistically significant, which is okay because YouTube's telling you the truth. But then we'll rerun it. The thing is, though, that I've seen lots of podcasts doing different styles. So they might do the first round is just text that they're changing. The second round might be imagery that they're changing. So you're constantly iterating and experimenting on that to see what works, what doesn't. And you can be doing it on all episodes at the same time, which is quite cool.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a never-ending game of thumbnail testing.
Yeah. And you're true. And you're right in the sense of it's good to go back and because there's evergreen videos that are continuously performing. It's good to like keep those alive.
Yeah.
In terms of you and your role, can you share with us one experiment that you have personally run or like brought to the table? Like just walk us through how you came up with the idea and what it actually involved. I'd love to hear like the practicality of what you actually do, or an example at least.
Yeah. Of a successful one or a failed one?
Let's go with a failed one.
Okay. We have a YouTube Clips channel, which is a shorter version of the Diary of a CEO long episodes, but they're not social media clips. They're still horizontal clips. And they're about 10 to 30 minute clips. And we post one a day roughly. And we thought, okay, the hypothesis was if we double the videos, will it double our views? Very simple hypothesis. But it can be simple. It doesn't have to be complex to run an experiment. And so we thought, okay, we've got heaps of content. Let's just double the content and see what happens. And it was not a success at all. Didn't double the views. In fact, I can't say too many detailed numbers, but it probably hurt our views on the original videos more than what it actually helped. Maybe for other channels, more than one video a day does work, but for us, it was not a success at all. But the whole hypothesis around it was, can we see if we can increase views with increased output? And it didn't. So it was a really interesting test for us, something we quickly switched back after. I think we tested it for a month and we were like, actually, this is not it. But also gave us more understanding into YouTube's algorithm to see how does and doesn't it work. So that's been one of the experiments we ran maybe 6 months ago to see how did the YouTube algorithm work on that. But there's honestly so many. It could be things from the call to actions and understanding what call to action in the episode gets us more subscribers. Is it something funny? Is it something super boring and generic, or is it numerical? So we're iterating always on experiments like that.
And how do you decide like what's worth experimenting on? Is it literally just any idea goes, or is there a process of like, no, let's actually see if this is worth putting resources towards?
Yeah, we have company KPIs, which are our goals, and then every team has goals as well. And we always want the experiments to align towards those goals. Otherwise, I don't know if you've seen a photo of like all the arrows pointing in different directions. That's what happens if you're just running random experiments, whereas we want all of our experiments and the arrows to be pointing in the same direction or towards the same goal. So no matter what it is, it could be our goal for We Need to Talk, the podcast, is to get to 1 million subscribers, and every experiment should be towards that. And that's kind of how we frame them. And then we go back and go, okay, I have an idea to try the double content, and that would maybe get us to our view goal. And so that's how the experiments kind of form. And if there's something super random, we might still try it just to see. It could be a knowledge experiment as well. I kind of see them as goal experiments, which are towards our goals and KPIs. But then sometimes the knowledge ones are valuable. So learning things about the algorithms that our competitors wouldn't know because they're not trying it, or learning something new about a platform or a software and things can also be really valuable. So we kind of run multiple different types of experiments across the board.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting to hear. What's been your favorite one or favorite learning that you're like, wow, I had no idea that I would even learn that from running this experiment?
Ooh. God, there's honestly doing it for so many years now, there's so many. I'm trying to think
I'll
of
take
one.
notes, but I think we keep it short, have one.
Yeah, I know. My favorite one, I think it would be on Spotify when we started doing we basically started Moments, which are kind of Spotify's version of clips. And we've been playing around with the timing and understanding what's the optimum length to keep viewers at high retention. And we have played around with it for so long and have been able to find like the exact length. And we still constantly experiment. It's never ending. We've been able to find the exact length to keep the optimum viewers, which then obviously full circle allows better opportunities for the podcast, better brand partnerships, better overall retention. So I think it's almost the fine tuning. It's not something super dramatic, although I do love the massive innovations and experiments, but it's the fine tuning things like testing a length of time. Like how do you test the length of your episodes to see what is the optimum time for people to stay? If you push it an extra 30 minutes, does your retention also increase that amount of time? And I think that's kind of one of my favorite parts of experimenting and the learnings behind it, of those small tweaks that can add up to the big experiments.
So interesting. Obviously, like a part of experimenting is failing. And I know you have this, internally have this model, or Steve has this model of like failing fast.
Yes.
But emotionally, that can be a little tough sometimes. How does someone build the capacity? Like, say they're not, for example, in your shoes, like working for a company that has the budget and resources and they're wanting to do that on their own for themselves. How do you build the capacity to fail fast without losing confidence in yourself?
Yeah, I think it's setting, so you obviously have your goals, personal goals, work goals, whatever, and then setting little experiments within those goals, and whether they go right or wrong, it doesn't matter. And what matters is the learning from it. So I guess the whole point of it is not, and even Steve says this all the time, he's like, it's not the success or the failure that matters, it's that you tried. And I guess I'm not going to speak on behalf of him, but I'll speak on behalf of myself. If I had to choose between someone who was going to only experiment because it was a success or a failure, or only try for successes, or try because they want to find the answer, it's the try because they want to find the answer, not just because they want to achieve something. And it doesn't matter what that answer is. It's just that you've tried. Yeah. And even if it comes back inconclusive, we say 7 in 10 experiments come back inconclusive. And that's kind of industry standard of what I've heard people say across the whole experimentation world. And so you have to run 7 experiments before you even get a success or a failure. It's a lot. And especially as a solopreneur, a solo creator, it can be hard. But I think it's, if we have 7 days in a week, can you run one tiny experiment every day? Like set aside 15 minutes, 30 minutes to try an experiment, whether it's testing a different thumbnail, whether it is even things on social. There's so much you can play around with, and being able to test that, put it in and see what happens.
Very interesting. Before we kind of take this and talk about it on a personal level, because I'd love to know how you maybe apply this in your personal life. Yeah. Can you, very high level, let's just go with like YouTube, Instagram and Spotify. Yeah. What would be like maybe 2 things people can test in each of those platforms? Yeah. So let's start with YouTube, obviously. Thumbnail testing and title testing, amazing ones. There's also the AI feature that is almost like a brainstorm feature. So if you are a solo creator, it's kind of like having a social media manager or a YouTube strategist, to help go back and forth with. And I know some people, not in our company, but other creators in the US who've been using it on their podcasts, and the ideas they've got from the YouTube feature have actually performed the best on their channel. Wow. So really, they're not lying. They're giving us all of the information and we just need to use that information. And then there's so many other things on YouTube, whether it's the end screens that they could also experiment with. So you see really high retention from the people who stay the longest. How do we then get them to convert to more episodes or get them to subscribe? That's YouTube. Spotify, comments. Get people to comment. It really shows up in the algorithm. And also, obviously, basic, but subscribing. So the CTAs, how can you play around with what are the CTAs in your episode? And the other one that some people miss out on is chapters. I think that can be really important. Like timestamps, right?
Yeah. Yep. Putting timestamps, and so many podcasts don't do this. And I'm like, oh, where was I up to? And then I might bounce and leave because I've lost it and I'm not going to come back. And then Instagram was the other one, wasn't it? Yes. Trial reels. They have literally made that so that you can experiment and see what works and what doesn't for non-subscribers. So the platforms are making experimentation tools. It's just about using them. The other one is they've got the translation tool now on Instagram as well.
Yes, I saw this yesterday.
Yeah. And I got served a woman speaking in a foreign language, and then it was English, and I didn't even know she was speaking in another language.
I had the same experience yesterday.
It's so weird, but amazing.
Yeah. And then it was like AI translated. I was like, what? And I changed it back. I'm like, she's Spanish? What the hell?
But I think it's so cool because I never would have probably consumed the content had it not been in English, because I only I know a little bit of French from school. Again, failed at that. I wouldn't have consumed it, but it's amazing. Instagram has done that. And it's probably one of the best translation softwares I've seen online of Instagram building it into the platform. The lip syncing, it's really, really well done.
Yeah, crazy, hey?
Yeah. So I think overall it's more using the tools that are there. You don't have to come up with anything super innovative. It can be as simple as just using those things to your advantage.
Yeah. Really good tips. Thank you for sharing. What about you in your personal life? Like, do you find now you do apply this approach of like experimentation more since you've grown in the role? Was this always something you kind of had in your personality, and what does that look like?
Yeah, I think I have always had it in my personality. I'm the oldest sibling, and we joke within our household because there's a video of me actually when Liam was born, and my dad has the camera on with the red light, and I'm like, why is the light on? Why is the light on? And I just couldn't understand why the light was on the camera. And it's the curiosity. And that's something when I do lots of talks, my first slide is, are you curious? And how many times do you ask why? And the whole point is that when we're children, obviously you have a child now, so I'm sure you'll get this as they grow up, but children ask so many more questions than us, and they're curious and they're not afraid to be stupid or dumb. And
it's not a concept for
them. And also how amazing to ask questions and be curious about the world. Whereas when we get to adults, you don't want to look stupid at work, or lots of people don't want to look stupid at work. How do you ask more questions if you don't want to look stupid? And so something at Flight that's been amazingly brought down, not only from management, which I think is important, but throughout our culture, is saying I don't know to things. So you can ask me a question and I can answer I don't know, because it's better than lying.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie and tell you an answer that's not true. And so I think from childhood up until now, I've always had that in me of being curious, asking questions, not really settling for an answer as well. Someone could tell me something and I'd ask more questions, not in a rude way, but in an inquisitive way. And so I've always had kind of that experimental, curious mind. But failure is still hard, even though I failed lots of times in my life, mainly in exams. But
thank God they're in the past.
Yeah. But it's funny because I said this on another podcast, but there's so many classes I succeeded in, but then hilarious that I also failed in a class. But isn't that something telling you that it's where your passion lies? And we even have in Flight, we do a Friday quiz that's like, I think it's some quiz online. It's a joke, just as part of our culture. I almost fail at it every time because was
it like trivia or something?
Yeah, it's trivia.
Oh,
and
I'm so bad at that.
I don't really watch the news because I'm so just obsessed with my work. And every waking hour is podcasting, creators, how do we grow the media world? And if it was a quiz about that, I'd probably be way better. But because it's a quiz about general knowledge, I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I think it's the inquisitiveness and just finding out why and truly becoming the best in your area.
I really resonate with this curiosity. Like for me, this was something that was within me. And so when I was sitting in my corporate job as a lawyer and basically paper pushing and not really connecting with others, I needed that touch point with people because I was curious to learn and grow. And that's what, I mean, I'm just thinking you should have a podcast if you know, in the future, maybe like it's a really nice outlet to actually be able to explore that aspect. And I think that is what has allowed me to do this for 5 years because I am just curious. It's not like I'm forcing myself to like sit here and ask you a checklist of questions. You know, it's just it's such a nice way to be able to experience the world because you realize there's only so much you know. And, you know, it's a classic saying, like, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. It's so true. And your curiosity really is the bridge that takes you there.
It is. And that's why Steve started the Diary of a CEO was because he didn't start it because he needed a podcast. He started it because he wanted to learn from other people.
Yeah.
And he only will interview guests he wants to learn from.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And still to this day, he would turn down so many. I'm like, why are you turning down that person? But it's because he wants to learn from and actually learn more knowledge. And it's cool because you can then apply it in your life.
100%. And speaking of, so I love this idea of experimentation. I think it's really cool that you get to do it in work. It's sort of a part of your personality. I think there is an opportunity here for people to experience like personal growth when they tap into this sort of aspect. Is there anything practical that listeners can maybe take as an experiment in their personal life that can create like some real tangible change that they can try after this episode?
Yeah, I think it's about, I'm very goals person. So I've already set my 2026 goals. We wrote them down. I actually wrote them down way before 2026 to think on them and then adjust and rewrite.
We're so similar. It's not funny. Our oldest child also.
Yeah, I love that. But it's nice to have some goals in mind, even if I change.
You just stew on them. Yes.
Yeah. But whether the people listening have goals or not yet, I think it's important to at least set something. And it doesn't have to be something major. It could just be something you want to achieve this year. And then experimenting around that. So whether it's something little or something major. So one of the goals I've set myself is I've been so focused on work for the last 4 years. It's like, actually, I want to start sharing more. And Steve told us this in the early days. He said, stop telling me all the information. He said, go and share it with the world. And he said, share what you're learning from the books, the podcasts I listen to with everyone else. So that's something I've set myself this year. And it's hard because I work a full-time job and that is my life. And then also trying to do content creation on LinkedIn or Instagram on the side and finding time for that. But I'm setting myself little experiments all the time. So whether it's to record a video or whether it's to go in and analyze the analytics and understand what worked and what didn't and creating an experiment off that. But it's, again, 1%. It's the doing something every day that then will compound to the success. So hopefully me putting in time, even if it's 10 minutes every day to try and work towards that goal. But I think whatever the listeners' goals are, whether it's something personal, whether it's health or finances. I even did it with finances. Last year I started doing, if I don't buy lunch, I then put that money I would have spent on lunch into a pot just to then see it compound. Not for any reason, wasn't saving for something, but to see how much money I was spending on lunch and be aware. So it could be, I run so many little experiments in my life, but just trying something new. And also you can always send them to me and I can help brainstorm their experiments. So yeah.
I love this because I think for people who are, they get dopamine from ticking things off or completing things, like this is a way to like gamify the experience of doing the 1% and working towards your goal in a way that's like a little unconventional. Like I like thinking about it as like you have a goal and then you have like micro goals and they form like your steps, like one step in the staircase every day. But like to look at it as an experiment, like really gamifies it. And I think if you know yourself as that kind of personality where that will motivate you or like, I don't know, just add a bit of fun to every day. Because I think we often just forget about that, like to have fun in life. Like we always take things like really seriously. I think this is a fun way to, like I said, gamify it.
Yeah. And I think as well, if you're not trying something new or experimenting, you're not going to
grow.
At all. You're not going to become a better person. You're not going to grow into the goals that you want to achieve. And I loved in Andrew Huberman's podcast, he was talking with David Goggins and he said about willpower and about the mid-cingulate cortex in our mind or in our brain. And he basically said the more you put yourself in uncomfortable situations that you don't like, the bigger that part of your brain grows and you're more willing to do other things. And I was like, okay, how do I put myself in more uncomfortable situations, whether it's an ice bath, whether it's reading some white paper that you find boring but you want to learn from. So I really am trying to do that as well and experiment with being more uncomfortable.
What is at the moment the most uncomfortable thing you're doing this year?
Ooh, I like that. For me, which is probably so simple to some people, but is cooking, finding ways to meal prep because health is such, as a lot of people's goals are health, but a really big focus for me this year. So finding ways to actually take that time to meal prep and start enjoying that. I love an ice bath, so I'm the complete opposite of what most people, but cooking and food. What's yours?
Oh, I'm actually, this is the first time I'm going to be saying this on the podcast. Yeah. I'm actually returning to a full-time job, which a lot of people might find very, very surprising. But basically, so very quickly, I used to work in a corporate job.
Yes.
And then I stepped out because the corporate world is just not for me. I really felt like there was more to life. I started consulting as a lawyer.
Yeah.
That gave me the flexibility I wanted to have my baby and also have the capacity to do this on the side. But basically what happened was through one of my clients that I got during that time, I met them in a space where I was running my own business and doing law a bit differently, right? I'm very commercially minded. I'm not very good sitting in a corporate job. He loved what I was doing so much. He's starting a new company this year and basically asked me to come in and sit in their C-suite.
Oh my gosh, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Very outside of my comfort zone because I've never been in a C-suite role. And I also never thought I would be working in a full-time position with a 6-month-old. That really wasn't on the bingo card. It wasn't a part of the balance I had seen, but obviously put a lot of thought behind it. And I might do a video later in the future about my decision and kind of what the role is a bit more in depth. But that's going to be an uncomfortable thing, you know, like being away from my daughter, but also putting myself in professionally a bit of a different space. It's also given me capacity to grow the team behind the podcast. This is something I'm not giving up. It's very much so important to me. So just like navigating that new season of life is my kind of challenge for
That's so exciting.
Yeah.
A big change, but really exciting as well.
Definitely.
And also a massive congratulations.
Thank you so much.
So cool.
Yeah, so I'll keep you posted on that. Just to wrap up before I let you go, I want to talk a little bit about podcasting. Yeah. What are your thoughts? Do you think podcasts are oversaturated?
No, even though I know a lot of people think they are, but I don't think people ever say that about the book industry. They're not like, oh, the book industry is oversaturated and there's so many millions of books. I don't think any industry is actually ever oversaturated if you come in and do it differently. If it's just another podcast that there's so many others out there similar to, I think you could do it in a different way. Like someone I know, a creator in the US, he started a podcast called The Rub Down, which sounds really rogue. The name is interesting, but the concept behind it is they're on massage tables getting a deep tissue massage while he interviews someone.
Okay.
Yeah. And I actually don't know how they look at each other because their faces are facing down. I think they're just
FaceTime.
listening. Yeah. But it gave me goosebumps when he told me because it reminded me of Chicken Shop Date in the early days. And it was almost him taking a concept of podcasting and changing it and doing something differently. Whether it works or not, I really hope it does because it's such a cool concept. But I think it's the changing how you do it. And I don't think anything's oversaturated. Mm-hmm. I think it's just being able to do it differently. And AI as well. I think AI is going to be a massive part of podcasting going forward, whether it's AI podcasts, whether it's AI within podcasts, so many different things.
Interesting. It's a bit hard though, like when you're stepping into, like I just think, first of all, I'm so happy I started 5 years ago. But if I was stepping in now, like it's hard to experiment in an industry you haven't really dipped your toes in. So is there something in just getting started, even if it looks and feels like a lot of other podcasts, and then iterating as you go? Because it's a bit hard to, I don't know, what are your thoughts? Like, can you just experiment?
100%. I don't think you should ever go into something and be stuck in that. I think if you went in and you started doing 10-minute podcasts and you actually thought, I want to do an hour podcast now, I think you can grow an audience into that. I don't think you're ever stuck in what you're doing at the start. And I think the best way to do it is to experiment and grow with whatever's happening in the world. Because otherwise, what you created, if you're started, say someone else started 5 years ago and they never changed, obviously yours has done amazing and evolved and grown on YouTube, and I love your YouTube growth over the years. It's so good. But I think if people started then and did nothing different, they'd probably still be in the same place. And there's a really good graph on Steve's LinkedIn of the growth of our YouTube views over from 2019 until now. And every day it's so small at the start. There's almost no growth. And then it just skyrockets and it goes to over 3 million views a day. And that's because it's the trying something new every day. So I think starting a new podcast now, 100% do it. But I think finding that niche or the difference to what's out there and also putting your own spin on it. People come to a podcast usually because they like the host. That's why they'll come back, not just because of the guest or whoever they're bringing on.
Yeah. And I always say, like, your niche is you. So, I mean, I'm also curious to see how that concept goes with the whole massage table. Yeah. I've seen some other wild ones, like, while they've been on, like, just doing random stuff. Yeah. So I don't know about how the audio quality and stuff's going to be in those kinds of things, but it's like just finding a way that makes sense for you. And I always tell people, like, remember your niche is you, and there's one of that. And I think there's something in the compounding effect. When I started, the other podcasters that I aspired to be like, they'd all been around for a minimum of 5 years. So I said to myself, right, if I'm taking this seriously, I have to do it for 5 years before I even think of who's listening, what am I doing this, why am I doing it, if I want to do it seriously.
Yeah.
And so I just hit my 5-year mark. So I think
congrats.
when you start, thank you, when you start anything, like look at who's been doing it and how long they've been around, and that's how long it takes for the compounding effect to also get to your 3 meal a day.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen overnight, and I think that's what people want to happen.
That's what they see, because that's when they catch on.
Yeah, but it's not to say it can't as well. Like I think people who we've seen it with our other shows, Davina and Paul both already had like followings on other social medias. So when they've now started their podcast, it's had really good growth. But it's not to say that you can't start with no following and grow something. And it's on any platform. Like Grace, one of my old colleagues, started a vlog on YouTube, and she committed a year, and I think she started in September or October, and she's already about to hit 10K subscribers in that amount of time, purely because she's so into experimenting, trying to grow and find ways to try new things. So I don't think it's ever too saturated or the wrong time. I think it's just about how you find that niche and put your spin on it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think that's a great place to leave our chat today. Thank you so much for making time during your visit here in Dubai to come and chat with me, and maybe we'll do a part 2 in the future too. I'd love to stay connected.